Apologize right now or get out. My son David stood at the head of the dining table, his face flushed with sudden anger. Next to him, his wife Sarah crossed her arms, her chin tilted upward in smug defiance. I looked at the roast I had spent 4 hours cooking. I looked at the spotless kitchen counter I had scrubbed before they even woke up from their Sunday nap. Then I looked at my 40-year-old son, a man I had raised alone since he was 12 after my husband passed away. The argument hadn't even been about anything significant. Sarah had walked into the kitchen annoyed that I reorganized her pantry while putting away the groceries I bought with my own money. She called me overbearing. She announced to the entire dining room that I treated her house like my personal renovation project and demanded I stop intruding. I merely pointed out that if she didn't want me putting groceries away, she could unpack them herself next time. That was the terrible insult. That was the line I crossed. Sarah slammed her water glass down. David jumped immediately to her defense, demanding I apologize to his wife for disrespecting her boundaries in her own home. I am 68 years old. I spent the last 7 years acting as their weekend nanny, their emergency ATM, and their unpaid housekeeper. I did it because I loved them. I did it because I thought that was what a good mother was supposed to do. But looking at David's demanding glare, something inside me clicked shut. A heavy, quiet door locked right in the center of my chest. I didn't argue. I didn't defend my actions or list everything I did for them to guilt them into compliance. I picked up my purse from the back of the chair. I slid my arms into my coat. "Have a good evening," I replied, my voice perfectly steady. I turned around my heels, clicking softly against their hardwood floor, and walked out the front door. I didn't wait for a reaction. I didn't look back. I just drove away. I didn't drive home to cry. I drove home to execute a plan. The moment I walked into my apartment, I locked the door and made a pot of tea. No tears fell. I felt an eerie, sharp clarity. For years, I had ignored the subtle disrespect. The eye rolls when I offered advice. The way Sarah handed me dirty plates without a word of thanks. The way David only called when a bill was due or a pipe burst in their house. I opened my laptop on the kitchen table and logged into my bank account. The numbers stared back at me. A healthy savings account built carefully alongside my late husband. But the checking account told a different story. It was a ledger of my own foolishness. Every month on the 1st, an automatic transfer of $800 went to David's account to help with the mortgage. A separate $450 transfer covered Sarah's SUV lease. I also paid the $1,200 quarterly tuition for my grandson's private soccer academy. They didn't ask me for this money anymore. It just vanished from my account, a quiet expectation that had turned into a mandatory subscription. I moved my mouse over the mortgage transfer. I clicked cancel. A little green check mark appeared. I moved to the car payment. Cancel. I went into the recurring card charges and removed my credit card from the soccer academy portal. In less than 10 minutes, I severed the financial umbilical cord that had kept my son tied to me. The relief was immediate. It felt like taking off a heavy winter coat in the middle of July. My phone vibrated on the table. A text from David. "Let us know when you're ready to apologize. Sarah is really upset." I read the words twice. I didn't type a reply. Instead, I swiped his message away and opened a new tab on my browser. The financial cord was cut. Now I needed to cut the physical one. The real shock wouldn't hit them until the 1st of the month, and I planned to be very far away by then. I picked up my phone and dialed Joanne. Joanne and I had been neighbors for 20 years before she packed up and moved to the Algarve coast in Portugal. She was a practical, no-nonsense widow who spent her days walking the beach and drinking green wine. She had been begging me to visit for 3 years. "Marilyn," She answered, her voice bright over the international connection. "I need a change of scenery," I stated simply. "Do you still have that spare room?" Joanne didn't ask for a long explanation. She knew my dynamic with David. She had watched me cancel lunches because Sarah suddenly needed a babysitter. She had seen me write checks for their home repairs while ignoring my own leaky roof. "The room is yours," Joanne replied warmly. "How long are you staying?" I looked around my apartment. I leased this place month to month. The furniture was old. I had no pets, no demanding career, nothing anchoring me to this city except a son who had just ordered me out of his house. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe a long time." "Book the flight, Marilyn. We'll figure the rest out when you land." I hung up and opened a travel website, Flights to Faro, Portugal. I found a one-way ticket leaving in 5 days. I didn't hesitate. I entered my credit card information and hit confirm. The confirmation email popped into my inbox. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. I was actually doing this. For the first time in my life, I was making a massive decision without factoring in anyone else's comfort. I wasn't worrying about who would pick my grandson up from school on Tuesdays. I wasn't stressing about how David would afford his landscaping service. I was choosing Marilyn. I had exactly 4 days to disappear. I didn't feel panic. I felt a cold, determined energy pulsing through my veins. The next 4 days were a masterclass in quiet efficiency. I called my landlord and paid an extra month's rent to break my lease clean. I didn't want any messy, loose ends tying me back to this zip code. Then I walked across the hall and knocked on my neighbor's door. A young college student named Maya lived there. I offered her my couch, my dining table, and my television for $300. She took the deal instantly. Whatever didn't fit in 2 large suitcases went to a local charity shop. I packed my clothes, my favorite books, and a small box of photographs of my late husband. That was it. My entire life reduced to 45 pounds of luggage. David texted me on Wednesday. "Mom, this silent treatment is immature. Sarah is willing to forgive you if you just call her." I read the message while taping a box shut. The audacity actually made me laugh aloud, a dry, humorless sound. They truly believed I was sitting in my apartment agonizing over their disapproval, waiting for permission to re-enter their lives. I took my spare key to David's house, the one I used to let myself in every weekend to do their laundry, and placed it flat on my kitchen counter. Beside it, I left a short note for the landlord. I did not leave a note for David. By Thursday evening, the apartment was completely empty, except for my suitcases standing by the front door. The echoing silence of the bare walls should have felt lonely, but it felt incredibly spacious. I ordered a taxi for 4 in the morning. I ate a simple dinner of toast and tea sitting on the floor. My phone buzzed again. David trying to call. I let it ring out. He thought distance would make me cave. He thought I was throwing a tantrum. He had absolutely no idea I was throwing away my old life completely. The taxi driver arrived at exactly 4 in the morning. He helped me load my 2 suitcases into the trunk. The city was still completely dark, the streets slick with a light morning mist. I handed my apartment keys to the building manager the night before. There was nothing left for me to lock, nothing left for me to check. As we drove toward the airport, I watched the familiar neighborhoods blur past the window. I passed the grocery store where I used to buy David's favorite snacks. I passed the park where I pushed my grandson in the swings while Sarah got her nails done. I felt a brief pang of sadness, but it was quickly swallowed by a wave of intense relief. Security was quick. I found my gate, bought a black coffee, and sat near the window watching the planes move across the tarmac. At 6:30, the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. I pulled out my phone one last time. I opened my banking app, confirming all the scheduled transfers were still canceled. The screen showed 0 pending transactions. I smiled. I drafted a quick text to David. I didn't want him filing a missing person report and causing unnecessary drama. I am taking an extended trip abroad. My lease is canceled. Do not worry about me. Take care of your family. I hit send, then immediately powered the phone off and slipped it into my purse. I didn't wait to see the delivered notification. I didn't wait for the frantic question marks to flood my screen. I handed my boarding pass to the attendant, walked down the jet bridge, and found my seat. The engines roared to life. As the plane lifted off the runway, pushing me back into my seat, I closed my eyes. The heavy burden of motherhood I had carried for 4 decades stayed down on the ground. Stepping out of the airport in Faro, the air hit me differently. It smelled of salt, warm earth, and absolute freedom. Joanne was waiting by the curb in a small, battered blue car. She threw her arms around me, laughing loudly. "Look at you! You actually did it!" She cheered, tossing my bags into the trunk. The drive to her town took 40 minutes. The Portuguese coastline rolled past the window, all rugged cliffs and deep blue water. We arrived at a small whitewashed flat overlooking a narrow cobblestone street. Joanne showed me the spare room. It had a simple wooden bed, a large window letting in the ocean breeze, and a tiny desk. It was basic, uncluttered, and utterly perfect. "Take your time adjusting," Joanne advised, handing me a glass of iced water. "Nobody here needs anything from you, Marilyn. Remember that." I spent the first few days simply learning how to breathe again. I woke up when my body wanted to. I walked to the local bakery and bought fresh bread without checking my watch to see if it was time for school pickup. I sat on the balcony, watching the neighbors hang their laundry in the sun. I bought a local SIM card for my phone, transferring my contacts over, but keeping my new number entirely private. If David wanted to reach me, he would have to email. On the 4th day, the calendar flipped to the 1st of the month. I sat on the balcony with a cup of strong coffee, feeling the warm sun on my face. Thousands of miles away, the automated systems were kicking in. Or rather, failing to kick in. The bank servers would check for the mortgage transfer. Denied. The car payment. Denied. The soccer tuition. Denied. I took a slow sip of my coffee. The view of the Atlantic Ocean had never looked so brilliantly clear. The fallout arrived via email 2 days later. I opened my laptop after a long walk on the beach. There were 3 emails from David. The first one was sent at 8 in the morning his time. "Mom, did your bank account get hacked? My mortgage autopay bounced today. Call me ASAP." The second email arrived 2 hours later. "Mom, Sarah's car payment didn't go through either." What is going on? Where are you? Are you okay? The third email, sent late at night, abandoned the concern entirely. "This isn't funny. If you stop the transfers because you're mad about last Sunday, you need to grow up. You are putting our house at risk. Call me immediately." I read them all calmly. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel the familiar rush of guilt that used to control my every move. I hit reply to the last email. I kept my words brief and factual. "David, my bank account is fine. I canceled the transfers. You are 40 years old, and Sarah has a full-time job. You are both capable of paying for your own lifestyle. You demanded I leave your house, so I did. I took my wallet with me. Please do not expect any further financial contributions. Best, Marilyn." I clicked send and closed the laptop. I pictured the scene in their kitchen. The panic. The sudden realization that their comfortable lifestyle was built entirely on my silent, unappreciated sacrifices. They had bitten the hand that fed them, assuming the food would just keep appearing. For the first time in his life, my son had no script for what came next. The safety net was gone, and gravity was finally taking hold. I put on my sun hat and walked out to join Joanne for lunch. I ordered fresh seafood and a glass of wine, savoring every single bite without a single regret. A week later, an email from Sarah appeared in my inbox. Unlike David, Sarah didn't bother pretending to worry about my safety. Her email was a masterclass in manipulation, a tactic I recognized all too well. Marilyn, I know we had a misunderstanding, but punishing your grandchild by pulling his soccer tuition is cruel. David is working extra shifts now because of you. We expected you to act like a mature adult. You need to fix this. I stared at the screen. She was still trying to position herself as the victim. She still believed she held authority over me. I didn't engage with the insults. I didn't defend myself. I simply typed my response with a steady hand. Sarah, my grandson's extracurricular activities are his parents' responsibility, not his grandmother's. You set a boundary when you told me to get out of your home. I respect your boundary entirely. I am out. Do not contact me again to ask for money. I blocked her email address immediately after hitting send. I walked away from the computer and went down to the local market. I bought fresh tomatoes, olive oil, and a beautiful handmade ceramic bowl. I signed up for a pottery class hosted by a local artisan down the street. My days filled with the simple, tactile joys of living. I shaped clay with my bare hands. I learned a few phrases of Portuguese. I laughed with the local shopkeepers who recognized me. Sarah and David thought distance would make me cave. They assumed the silent treatment would wear me down, sending me crawling back with a checkbook in hand. They miscalculated terribly. The distance didn't break me. It reinforced my spine. It proved exactly how vibrant my life could be when I wasn't carrying the dead weight of their entitlement. I placed my new ceramic bowl on my table, filled it with fruit, and realized my apartment here felt more like home than my old place ever did. 3 months passed. The seasons shifted, turning the coastal air slightly cooler, but the sun remained bright. My pottery skills improved. I made friends with a group of expatriates and locals who met for coffee every Thursday. Nobody here knew me as David's mom. I was simply Marilyn, a woman with a quick smile, a good eye for art, and a peaceful aura. Then another email from David arrived. This one was different. There were no demands. There was no anger. Mom, I drove past your old apartment today. Maya told me she bought your couch. I didn't realize you actually moved out for good. Sarah and I had to sell the SUV. We bought a used sedan. I'm doing my own landscaping now. It's hard. I'm exhausted. I miss you. Can we please talk? I read the words and felt a gentle twinge of sympathy, but no urge to rescue him. He was finally experiencing the friction of reality. He was learning what things actually cost, both in dollars and in sweat. The exhaustion he complained about was the exact same exhaustion I had endured for years to keep his life running smoothly. I drafted a careful reply offering my phone number but setting clear parameters. I told him he could call me on Sunday afternoon. When the phone rang on Sunday, I answered sitting on my balcony, watching the tide roll in. Mom? His voice sounded smaller, stripped of its usual arrogance. Where are you? I'm in Portugal, David. I replied smoothly. When are you coming back? He asked, a desperate edge creeping into his tone. We need you here. The silence stretched across the international line. He wasn't asking for his mother. He was asking for his safety net to return. I took a deep breath of the salty air, ready to deliver the truth. My answer was something neither of us expected. I'm not coming back, David, I stated clearly. He let out a shaky breath. Mom, please. Sarah says she's sorry. We can go back to how things were. I don't want to go back to how things were. I explained, keeping my voice gentle but entirely firm. How things were worked perfectly for you, but it drained me dry. I love you, David. You are my son. But I am done being your infrastructure. So that's it, he asked softly. You're just gone. I'm not gone. I am living my own life. If you want to talk to me, you can call. If you want to visit, you can save up and buy a ticket. I would love to see my grandson. But I am not writing another check, and I am not stepping foot in a house where I am treated as a burden. There was no argument this time, no demands for an apology, just the quiet acceptance of a man realizing the rules of his universe had permanently changed. "Okay, Mom," he whispered finally. "I understand." We spoke for 10 more minutes, keeping the conversation light. When we hung up, I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I set the phone down on the small table. Joanne walked out onto the balcony carrying 2 glasses of green wine. She handed one to me and clinked her glass against mine. "Everything all right?" she asked, looking at my phone. "Everything is exactly as it should be." I smiled. I looked out over the vast, glittering expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. I was 68 years old, sitting on a balcony in a foreign country, holding my own money, my own time, and my own peace. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't an ATM. I was simply Marilyn. And for the first time in a very long time, I was entirely free. If there's one thing we can take away from Marilyn's story, it's that setting a boundary isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-respect. As parents, we are so used to giving, fixing, and providing that we sometimes confuse being useful with being loved. But you don't have to buy your family's affection, and you certainly don't have to endure disrespect just to keep the peace in a house you helped build. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your grown children and for yourself is to finally let them stand on their own 2 feet. It's a reminder that it is absolutely never too late to step back, pack your bags, and choose your own peace. If this story resonated with you today, or if you're in a season of life where you are learning to draw your own lines in the sand, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to walk away to find your own peace? Let's talk about it.